which is almost due south. And as I say, you would press the foot lever down there, you would make your changes, then you depress this button, which is your autopilot, or cruise control. Now you can just sit the way you are right now and wait for the commanding officer or the officer of the deck to say, all right, let's change a couple of degrees to port or something like that. Then you step on it again. Engine order telegraphs. These are what tell the engine room what speed to go. That's stop right now. And we had a Russian on board a few weeks ago, and he told me what it said, and I wrote everything down here. Flank speed. This doesn't actually change the speed. What this does is tell the engine room what speed we want, and they answer by putting their black arrow in here. Then they actually go ahead and change the engines to bring the speed up to whatever you want. Then they bring it back down. And when you're running in reverse, it's the red. There's one for the starboard engine, one for the port engine. This is the inclinometer. This tells you whether the boat is leaning to the left or the right, port or starboard. And if they're leaning one way or the other, you go ahead and shift some fuel on the tanks, or some water, or some ballast on the tanks. And over here, your bow planes. Remember the bow planes that we looked at when in free flight area? Again, you have the clutch lever. Then you have your bow plane. This would make you dive. Stern planes are back aft. If you wanted to dive in a flat, level position, you would put both planes forward like that, and you would go down on a nice level. If you wanted to just dive, you would push your bow plane, the bow would go down, and down you go. If you really needed to dive fast, you pull your stern plane back, your bow plane forward, it drops it like this, and down you go like a rock.
Wow.
You break dishes, light bulbs, and everything else, so they don't like to do that too often. These are your depth gauges, tell you how deep you're going. 300 meters is your safe operating depth. 400 meters is crush depth. You don't want to go too much past that. They have 3 gauges over here, so that if he said take us down to 32 meters, you'd have to guess here. But here you can actually see 31, 32. And that's all it is on that. Then you have your diving valves. The red valves over here are your flood valves for your ballast tanks. The blue valves are for your compressed air. Years ago in World War I and early World War II, they actually had to open these to flood the tanks and compressed air to go ahead and purge the tanks. In our modern day Navy, these are all in the open position, and everything is done now with Kingston valves. And these levers over here operate the Kingston valve, which does the automatic. It fills the tanks to whatever you want. This is the equivalent of our United States Navy Christmas tree. In the Soviets, it's red and white. In ours, it's red and green. In theirs, it's just the opposite of what ours is. Red in ours means danger. There's a valve open or vent valve open. Green is a good, clean board.
Right.
In theirs, it's just the other way. The red board means it's okay to dive. Here's something. This is a sound-powered telephone. Feel the weight of that.
Whoa!
But if you put it on your ear, it cuts out a lot of sound. Now, if you go ahead and put your finger in your ear, you won't be able to hear.
I didn't hear anything.
Cut it out completely.
Did you just
over
not say anything on purpose?
When you put it up there.
No, you're right.
We do that with the kids a lot. And the other kids are all standing there looking at them saying, but he's not saying anything.
I know.
Sonar room is over here. Captain's battle station or fire control officers in there. That looks like a video game. Right over here. That's okay. We're going a little in reverse. Looks like a video game. He has final override of the missiles themselves. One deck down below us over here are the 4 missile consoles that 4 senior petty officers would be operating for the 4 missiles as they're fired. Then the assistant weapons officer has override capabilities. He's down at the end of that. And then the actual fire control officer or captain would have this. Before the missiles could actually be detonated, there are 2 keys, similar to our Navy. The political officer would have one, the captain would have the other, and they had to both turn the keys.
Wow.
Moving right along back aft, we have a radar room. And we have a periscope. The periscope and everything down below now is fire control for the missiles or torpedoes.
Okay.
Changing it, firing them, guiding them, whatever it happens to be. And there's 2 decks. There's also one of the 3 toilets is down below. But the enlisted men can't use that one because they're not allowed in the space.
Oh, boy.
And they can't use the one that's in officers' country, down in petty officer, because that's for the officers. So all 40 men forward had to use one back aft.
Oh.
It doesn't have to make sense. They only wanted to
No,
get
it
missiles
doesn't
out
make
there.
sense.
This is the radar shack. This is the
that's
aft-facing periscope in which you would use this to sight and target your rear torpedoes that are facing aft. And you can't see anything right now because the
No.
optics have all been removed. But that's the way you would do it, and then they say, down periscope, you flip up your levers on the sides over here, and they pull the handle over here, and the periscope would go down into its periscope well. There's also another periscope just like this up in the conning tower that you didn't want to go up into. What this is the radar room. They had two.
Look at this stuff. Oh, that's good stuff. All right.
This is a good one to swing through.
Oh, this looks
Yeah,
like a
there's
good
nothing
one.
on the deck.
Yeah, I
swing
can do
on
this one.
You go ahead and put your other radar up, and you would check for other ships or something like that, and you keep them going. Where in the movies you see the periscope is up while they're traveling. They never travel just with the periscope. They always have their radars up over here to make sure that nobody sneaks up on them. But that's Hollywood.
Stay tuned, we'll be right back from the Juliet.
Not together. Shower. All 82 men, officers, petty officers, and enlisted men would all take showers in here. Not together. But many times, same in our Navy, we would take showers together. You'd have 2 or 3 men in here. One man would go in, put on the ice-cold salt water, rinse himself off, get all that sweat off, step out to the side a little bit, soap up, while the next man goes in and he rinses off. Then you go ahead and you rinse off the soap with the salt water and freeze again, step to the side, the second man will do the same thing, and then you go ahead and turn the nice warm water on, the fresh water. Now you rinse down completely, then the other guy does it. So you usually have 2 guys in the shower at one time. And like I say, most of the time they didn't bother taking showers. It was just too much bother until they reached port. They wanted to smell good then for the wives and girlfriends. Put in by the K-19 movie crew, they actually slept on board here when they did the filming up in Halifax of the exterior shots of the boat. And they didn't have any power on here, so they needed heat, they needed electricity. They put these in, that's all that was. The batteries, there are 2 battery compartments down below here, which is, again, part of that 300 tons of batteries. There were 2 compartments down below. We presently have a pump in here, and we also have a diesel transfer pump. The battery cables over here, that's the size of the cables that would feed from the batteries going back to the electrical room itself, the maneuvering room. This was a godsend to bring us heat this winter. I froze here in November, December, January. They put it in February, and it sure was nice. It became 80 degrees, and it was almost too warm. And the water dripped through here and got rust all over my nice Russian jersey. We're now about to enter into the smell that you smell. This is the diesel engine room. Very noisy, except now. What you're looking at here are the rocker arms of a 12-cylinder flathead or pancake-style diesel engine. There are 2 of these. They're 3,500 horsepower each. Become very, very noisy in here. We're running at high speed. But these diesel engines were capable of pushing the boat through the surface at about 19.4 knots, which is about 22 miles an hour, which is pretty fast for a submarine. The inline diesel we have over here is 1,750 horsepower. It's used for auxiliary power to give you light and some of your pumps and things like that, so that you're not wasting the electricity that you're making, so that you can use that to recharge your batteries and drive the boat through the water. That's a diesel fuel pump in here. The temperature in here, if they were running on the surface in excess of 15 knots, would be about 140 degrees.
Oh my God.
It would be so loud in here that if you stayed in here without any ear protection, you'd be deaf in 5 minutes. So they'd wear the Mickey Mouse ears in here. They wouldn't really stand watches in here when it was 140 degrees. They go back in the maneuvering room. There's a set of redundant gauges and everything, and all controls are in there. So you can see what this looked like. It normally wouldn't have this. It would have the plates on the top. These are the exhausts, these big 18-inch tubes, and the supplies are about the same size, but they're up forward over here. And the fresh air is brought in through that into these diesels. And as I explained to Joe earlier there, diesels use so much air that if you weren't on the surface bringing in fresh air, the crew would be unconscious in 2 minutes and dead within 4. So
Wow.
you don't run your diesels below the water, you
No.
run your electrical motors. How they control the diesels over here, and they have a redundant set of gauges in the maneuvering room where it's not quite as hot. And each one of these is for a cylinder on these, again, 12-cylinder diesels. Very noisy in here. Diesel oil tanks are up above here. These are the day tanks that fed the oil into the diesel fuel into the diesels themselves. The tanks themselves, the main diesel fuel tanks, are on the bottom of the boat, open to the sea. There are no bottoms on these tanks. Diesel fuel being lighted in the water, it floats on top of the water. the seawater is constantly pushing up, so instead of the tanks draining down, they drain up. All that you do is open the valve, and the pressure of the sea pushes the oil up. And a little bit of the oil is tainted, but only a small part. Then it goes through the filters, goes into the day tanks, then the diesels use whatever they need from that. But very noisy in here, very noisy. And here's your maneuvering area here. As we come through over here, your tall guys that we bring on the tour that are 6'2", 6'3", they say, "Oh,
No problem.
who's in here?" We say electricians. "I want to be an electrician. I love it over here and over here," where they have even more room and they can do jumping jacks, morning exercises. But these are the electrical areas. These are the big controllers over here that change the raw electricity either from the batteries or the generators into usable electric power to drive the electric motors that are down below. And these are 3,000 horsepower motors. There's two of them. 3,500 on the diesels, 3,000 over here. And this will drive the boat at a top speed of about 14 knots down below the surface. But like anything over here, the faster you go, the more fuel you use. So you don't want to go that fast. The last compartment here is our after torpedo room. This is the one toilet that you can see. How amazing, a toilet. Genuine mahogany toilet seat. And it has a tile floor, a ceramic tile floor, and they had a regular procedure that they had to go through to flush. You can't just pull a handle and flush. It had to go into a tank, put compressed air in it, drain it down, and then send it into a holding tank, because you don't want to send your waste up where somebody else can find it floating and know that there was somebody in a non-shipping area. This is the after torpedo room. Straight up above you over here is one of the 3 escape hatches. If the crew happen to be in here and they happen to be in less than 125 or 150 feet of water where it wouldn't crush their lungs, their chest, they could escape out of here. They would go ahead and secure the watertight door over here. They would flood the compartment to about neck level. They would drop this shroud down, which has a weighted bottom that would hang down to about waist level. Then they would pressurize the water, which would push it up and find the path of least resistance, which is right up inside this tube. It would go to the underside of the hatch up above. They'd open that up, and out they float.
Wow.
That's the theory. No sub-commander's ever going to be in that shallow of water, so he wouldn't do it. A freezer over there. This is the decoy cannon. That would fire a canister about 6 inches in diameter and about 24 inches long, filled with Alka-Seltzer, basically bicarbonate of soda. Torpedoes like this one are acoustic homing torpedoes. They listen for the sound of your propellers or bubbles bursting. That's cavitation that your propellers give off. And what they would do is when the torpedo would be in the water coming after you on this boat, they would shut down their motors, go to their creeper motors, which are very quiet, send this canister out, which would be like an Alka-Seltzer tablet, make a lot of bubbles, and the torpedo would say, "Oh, there's my target," and off it would go over here and blow up harmlessly. That's the theory. Then down below are your creeper motors. This is a dummy torpedo it's the same size as the torpedoes that were in here, 16-inch, about 22 feet long, and these were used for drills of loading in and out. But there would be 2 of them on the racks here, 2 below here, two, and 1 in each tube over there. And again, this ladder and the hatch was not here. These are cut in for you folks. That's the end of the interior tour of the Podvodnaya Ladka, which is diesel electric submarine.
Well, Rudy, thanks so much for this tour on the Juliet. It was amazing. We had a great time, and we hope to come back and visit you again soon.
We look forward to seeing you and everybody else you can bring.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.